Hey everyone, my name is Nathan Payne. Welcome to another episode of Coffee and Crypto. I've got a real treat for you guys here today. We have Carlos joining us, co-founder, and he runs all the day-to-day operations at Meta Studio as well. Thank you so much for taking some time to come on here and talk about what you guys are doing. We had a chance to connect briefly the other week there, and it was so easy to talk to you. I felt like our meeting could have gone for hours. I was really interested in what you guys were doing, so I'm glad you're able to jump on our channel, help introduce to our community what you guys are doing. But yeah, let's just jump right into it, man. What got you guys started on this journey? Like, how did Meta Studios come to be?
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Um, so Meta Studio basically our entire team has been connected to the entertainment industry for for as long as we can remember. Like myself, for example, since I was like 17, I worked in the industry as a concept artist. The other two co-founders, they worked in the industry in places like NC Soft, DreamWorks. So like they worked in projects like Transformers, Kung Fu Panda, How to Train Your Dragon, Puss in Boots. In terms of gaming,
Storytelling.
like they worked on like Spyro the Dragon. They worked on Guild Wars. So it's like we have like a very extensive knowledge about the entertainment industry in general.
Okay.
And before opening Meta Studio, we actually were like the two co-founders, they founded another company called CG Master Academy. And CGMA is basically one of the largest schools for training people into concept art, VFX, animation, and so on. So during like the Web3 boom of
Hmm.
gaming, we looked at the space and we think that there is a lot that can be done in terms of blockchain gaming and use of NFTs. So two, we didn't particularly agreed with how the industry was evolving in Web3 in terms of gaming. And three, we when you look at any sort of technology,
Hmm.
like when it's like day zero for you to take the chance of building something unique, right? When we look at the space, we're like, okay, so we're at that point where it is a very interesting technology that we can jump on, and it can allow us to build something that is actually meaningful for the space, and
Hmm.
actually like something that we can use our passion to build it. So we decided to basically to build a game studio.
Okay.
And but instead of going on the traditional route of like let's now like find talent and hire people and then and grow the studio in that way,
Hmm.
we just look to people that they're already amazing at what they do. And we found a studio in Brazil called Orbit. I was friends with their art director for a while. His name is Rodrigo Pascoal, and they launched a game that was like it won game of the year in Brazil. They already had like other games under their pipeline, and we basically like we're like, "You guys, like if you guys want, you should like just join Meta Studio. This is our vision. This is what you're doing. This is what we want to build." And yeah, we basically got like a team that is like already super amazing at what they do, and like together we are basically building Meta Studio.
That's awesome. Wow. Sounds like you really had a great kind of networking opportunity to bring the right talent and right people together to be able to form, what you're doing. It's not like you guys are kind of a ragtag group. I'd say
Yeah,
group of experts is what it sounds like. That's
yeah.
fantastic. Well, and then how did Room Realms come into be? How did that inspiration happen as kind of the first Web3 title that you guys are really kind of focusing on? And are there plans for other titles, kind of being a studio? Is this kind of the one that you want to focus on first? Or do you guys have other things in the works too? Like what's your strategic plan with that? And why Rune Realms?
Yeah, so when you look at the space, Rune Realms basically started with the idea of creating like a play-to-earn game, we quickly scratched that idea. Like we have like a 500-page like document on how we could potentially implement a play-to-earn system that would make sense.
Mhm.
But the more we looked into it, the more we found like cracks in the system. And at the end of the day, like we are a game studio, like we're not a financial company, so we don't want to be managing like finances. We want to build amazing games.
Mhm.
But one thing that I find interesting is that through the use of NFTs, the best way that you can have like a game that people can have fun, um, play the game, and at the same time have some sort of like a trading system that makes sense. It
Okay.
would be through a game like Rune Realms, right? There is a MMORPS.
Yep.
So if people are familiar, for example, with Clash of Clans, they're building something fairly similar to Clash of Clans, and we are introducing a couple of different mechanics. It just makes sense for the game, just to be able to make players like want to engage further with each other.
Hmm.
Um, and and we can talk about that later. But even
Okay.
like on the NFTs that we have currently in the market, we also have that same mentality. But the main idea is like it's creating an ecosystem that one, the players can actually own that ecosystem, and um, and two, where instead of players being dependent, for example, in a token, if they want to quote unquote earn from the game, you can basically just like play the game, have fun, and as you basically progress into the game and you have like more resources and stuff like that, you can sell that in the marketplace, right? And
Okay.
you can sell that to other players. So that way, it's just like a more organic way. Whereas like I need that item, like or you can just like trade with other people or trade with your clan. You just have like a more organic approach to it, but at the same time have the value in the ecosystem of the game itself than having to force like a token and try to get like some value for that token in particular.
I see. That makes sense. One
Yeah.
thing that I was curious about, what's the difference between Room Realms Rebirth and Room Realms Clash? Because I've seen
Yeah.
that mentioned a few times.
Yeah. So Rune Realms Clash is the game that you're actually going to release in a couple of months from now. It's the
Okay.
game that is like kind of Clash of Clans, right? Rune Realms Rebirth is basically what we use um, to bootstrap, like to get funds for the project.
I see.
So
Okay.
for like for Meta Studio, we
Mhm.
basically bootstrap the studio with our own money, right? We were taking money out of pocket to bootstrap the studio. We basically were paying everyone, and we got to a point that we started doing outsourcing projects as well
Mhm.
from the studio. So basically, people that want their game built, they will hire us, and we'll basically build games for them. And that basically allow us to go in a position where we didn't really need to take money out of pocket to basically to focus in the studio. But
Oh,
as we transition into building more games that are internal for the studio, in the traditional sense of things, you could go on the route, for example, um, of talking, for example, with a publisher, right?
okay.
The problem with a publisher is that there are two things. One, either they'll ask you for a percentage in the studio, or
Mhm.
they'll ask for a percentage in the IP, or they'll ask you for both. And
Yep.
then on top of that, you have also one thing that for us we didn't want basically to give out. That is your creative freedom and on when you can work on your own terms, pretty much. Like we really want to take our time to polish things and to make things right.
Mhm.
So the way that we basically decided to do it was to use a gamified NFT system. That is basically the Rune Realms Rebirth. So in Rune Realms Rebirth, you have like two NFTs. One is the shrine, and the other one is the golems. The shrines basically allow you to stake the golems in shrine,
Okay.
and then the golems they grant you a percentage of revenue share in the studio. So
I
the
see.
way that it, and then even that system for the golems, they are gamified as well. Like we built, like when you look at the normal NFT space, where people think about like the NFT supply, we have like 2,000 shrines, but you can only own like four per wallet, and then you have like 25,600 golems. When you look at that supply in the NFT market, people think, oh, that's a lot in terms of supply, right? Because people are used like 10,000 NFTs nowadays is a lot. Like 5,000 NFTs like it's been the standard. But
Mhm.
one thing that people quickly realize is that we gamify the system of how our NFTs work. Because if you have like the four NFTs that are the same type and the same rarity, you can actually burn them to create a higher tier NFT. So if everyone decides to merge the NFTs from the 25,600 NFTs, 25,600 NFTs that we basically originally released, you will end up with only 100 NFTs in the market, right? So because of like it has a deflectionary system attached to the NFT. Um, so yeah, that's basically like it's Rune Realms Rebirth, and we built like an entire DApp system around it, and people can also use like their golems to play like a mini game instead of the DApp. And your variety of the golem also counts into how strong your golem is in the DApp. We could just leave it like where it's like, oh, you stake the golems and you have like a percentage, but we wanted to give something extra for people to do with their golems while they wait for the main game that we're going to release.
Okay.
Earlier, you asked if we are working on other games. Like besides games that we are working now in terms of outsourcing, we are also working on other games for the studio.
Okay.
One we haven't announced it yet, but that one we are going to be very public about it, and we're going to talk about it fairly soon. It's we like the code name for the game right now. It's Slime Jump inside of the company. It's a
Okay.
more casual game. It's more like if you think about like a more casual game, like in the sense of like a endless running game mixed with like an idle game.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
it will be a very interesting and fun game to play. It's like one of those things that people can just like pick up and play like for 15 minutes and have fun with the game. Um, However, we are building a very a very deep structure around it in terms of monetization, because we are actually using that game as not only a game but also something that allow us uh, to basically build modular systems that we can apply into other games that we build in the future.
Okay. I see.
So one game that you can think about, for example, if you want to like to look into it later, you have a game called Cookie Run. That is the closest thing to the game that you are building, but
Okay.
instead of having like a battling system, it will be a more like dynamic like jumping system that you can have fun and compete with other people as well. So just to be like a little bit more engaging. And
Okay.
then we have like another project that is like the project we usually don't talk about as much. That is Project Arcane. The
That was
goal
what
for
I was
that
going to
project
ask
is,
about.
yeah,
Yeah.
is to be like it's basically it's not particular a MMORPG in traditional sense of a MMORPG, but it is a game that like every single resource that we basically make in the studio, we are reinvesting to that project because we honestly believe that is something that can allow us to build a billion-dollar franchise around it, right?
Oh,
So
wow. Okay.
we wouldn't basically put the money there if we didn't think that we have like something fairly unique. um, and hopefully we will be able to share more about the grand vision behind it in a couple of months. We are just like polishing a couple of things so we can actually have like a showcase for it and not just be like, oh, here's the idea, right? No, the problem with that game is that it's an expensive game to build.
Okay.
Our projection to build like that game in a way that we are comfortable into adding that into the market and have people play, it will be around like 30 million to build the game. So it's fairly expensive. So we're basically just like utilizing the funds that we basically generate now, um, to build that and have like a something that we can present to the public and show like what we can actually do and what is the grand vision behind it, and have like a better way of showing it than just like telling. Because if I explain the idea, people will get it, but they'll be like, oh, I get it, it's fine. But if we show what is that, like the extent of what you're thinking about the game, that will give a different impact on for people to understand what it is that we actually want to build.
It does, but I also think it's really unique in the fact that you guys are saying, well, yes, we're taking our earnings and our proceeds from what we're doing, and we believe in this next step. I think
Yeah.
that's transparent as a gaming studio, just kind of letting people know, yep, here's what we're doing. We're committed to
Hmm.
the vision, we're committed to this path, and I haven't seen another company be so forthright about that. Yeah, they'll talk about doing other things or they have other things in the works, but they're not directly correlating well where the funds are coming from or how they're actually supporting that. I thought that
Yeah.
was cool how you guys had that in your white paper. And that was something that perked my interest right away. I was like, oh, okay. So proceeds from Rune Realms are going to help develop. Okay, these guys are really in it for the long term. It's not just
Yeah.
another, because nothing against all the game studios out there. They're all great and unique in their own way, but it's a very common thing to be like, yes, we're making multiple games. Here's the first one. And that seems to be a common theme kind of in this space is like there's
Hmm.
promise for more, but you don't often see how those connect together or
Yeah.
how those steps are going to be taken. And I think you guys did a fantastic job. And I would highly recommend anyone watching this, especially anyone in our community, our their links will be down in the description. Head to their website. They did a great job on the white paper. It really goes into a lot of that information about how you guys are really doing this as a studio rather than just a white paper of, well, here's how the game works.
Yeah.
And that's something that really blew me away, Carlos, was just your guys' transparency and how much thought you put into this. I can tell you guys want to be here for the long term. It's not just a flash in the pan kind of
Yeah.
strategy like some
Yeah.
other, projects were back in the bull run. So I'm really excited to see what you guys are going to keep doing. And I can't wait to hear more about Project Arcane. I mean, I think the teaser is like 2 pictures. That's it. But it
Yeah.
definitely has me curious. Now, Clash of Clans, personally, I played the crap out of that game. I mean, anyone who
Hmm.
knows me from this community knows we top esports team. We had the top Rune clan for 3 seasons. We had a community of over 20,000 members. It actually got a little absurd kind of near the end. So right away when you told me about Rune Realms, that caught my attention. What are some of the community oriented aspects that you say Rune Realms you guys are trying to focus on? And is there a competitive aspect as well that you guys are looking to develop there? And I know you still have some ways to get to, but I'm kind of curious about what the plans are with that.
Yeah. Like for example, the same way like the Clash of Clans, like they were updating the game like throughout the
Always.
years.
Yeah.
We have a couple of ideas that um, if we could, we would basically implement it like on day one. But
Okay.
unfortunately, we can't.
Yeah.
And those are things like and like on the same sake of transparency, building game. Like I don't think that people realize how like how much you spend on building games,
It's a
like on how
lot.
expensive it actually is to build games. So for us, like we need to focus on what is like the best way that we can utilize the resources to
Mhm.
then have the game like making money and then being
Yes.
able to progress it further, right? And but one thing that we want to do, there are a couple of things we want to do in terms of that. One, we're going to have like guilds just like in Clash of Clans, but you want to take it a step forward further because the way that you're building the game, because it's basically based on the Norse mythology, we want to build it in a system. That's why it's called Rune Realms, where
Mhm.
you have like the 9 realms of Norse mythology, right? And you can think of each realm as like a server. So the idea for that is that although, for example, you have your guild, you are still part of a realm, right? So your guild, you have like to survive in that realm. So you have like to have like to be the strongest tribe. But at the same time, you have to have like a unique balance on how you balance your strategy in the level of the realm itself.
Okay.
Because although you want to have like your guild super strong, you don't want to have your realm super weak, right? So you don't want just like to
Oh,
battle people in
interesting.
your realm and like kill people in your realm and like take out resources in your realm. Because at one point, when you have like a realm wars, then your realm can lose, right? So you need to have like a balance
Oh,
of like
okay.
a balance of play of like how do I create the strategy where like do I create an alliance like if the rest of people of the realm? Do I build like where I'm just like super strong and no one can beat me? And I'm like the only vision that basically can take care of these and like the rest of the realm has like resources. And then there's an extra layer for that, which is like we're all gamers in the company. We love playing games. The extra layer is that at one point you will have to face us as a studio. Right?
Right on.
So so how does like for example is that your guild and your realm will perform into facing us as a studio. And the way that we put that at like the facing us as a studio is in the fact of like instead of we going into the route of creating an esports league, what we
Okay.
want to do is just like allow everyone to participate in it, right? So everyone like even
Great.
if it's like a cash prize, right?
Mhm.
Let's say we have like a cash prize, for example, and starting was like 100K. We want to make sure to have like in a way that even if you are like a player that you can travel to go to an esports event, like you're not like the best player in the world, just like you like to play the game and you want to participate,
Mm.
you can. And then by sheer luck, for example, of I don't know, like you managed to win somehow, even though you're like the best player in the world, at least like you participated in it, and you want to make that part of the game where it's like the players can actually be part of like of the story of the game and participate in it and have like
That
a
sounds
less
awesome.
gated a less gated option of esports. Yeah.
That's really cool. I like that. And I like the playing against the development team or against the team and just I think the camaraderie and
Mm-hmm.
loyalty that that would breed is like it's really cool as a player to kind of know that that's even something that's possible.
Yeah.
That you guys are active in the game there or that there's like a challenge or something to kind of work towards for that. And I like that realm strategy thing because that does bring up a lot of questions. You know,
Mm-hmm.
what is the right way to do it is kind of what a lot of people are going to have to try and figure out. And like I would think right away, try to unite the whole realm, right? Bring
Hmm.
everybody together. But hey, maybe that's not the best strategy. Maybe you're weakening kind of your individual. I love that.
Yeah.
I think
Because like
adding more
there's
new.
also the other part, like if you try to unite the whole realm, you never
Mhm.
know the intentions of the other clan as
That's
well.
true.
So,
Be a little bit more
so
difficult to coordinate things.
yeah, yeah.
Some rogue
So
faction will go off and do some espionage or who knows what happens.
hmm
So I
yeah.
think that'd be really
So
cool.
I see like building like these different layers, and then there's like the other layer as well. That is like we are building um a layer where like players can choose their profession. That's
Mhm.
something that we are still looking into how we balance that. If it will be like per season or if it will be like a lot into the account. So for example, um let me this is a very this is a very old build, but I can give you an example.
Okay.
Let me just share my screen real quick. So this is like an old test that we had. But if you look, for example, into the game, right, you have like the trees and then you have like crystals and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So if the player goes and choose a profession, your profession will only be able to pretty much like mine one of the resources or
Okay.
two of the resources, right? So that will make in a way where the players need to trade with each other,
I
or it will kind of force the players to actually to build like their guild and then trade with each other or like go into the marketplace and buy resources, right?
okay.
So that is one of the things that we are still looking into how you're going to plan around it, if it's going to be something that is fixed and the player can just like choose and that's it, or if we build it in a way where the player can somehow like change in the future. So that's something that we are still looking into what would be the best way to plan that around.
Okay. Looks so smooth. I love the art. Just so
It's
too. It's incredible.
it it's funny because I think that that's the first time that you actually show something about the game publicly.
Oh, right on.
Like
There
we've been super secret about like what we show. We've been showing like images, but not like stuff. And even this build like is a it's an old build. It's just like a test for the buildings. But at least like people can have an idea of like what is it we're building. Um,
Well, thank you
all
for
of the art.
spoiling our community there and revealing this. Today, because I'm
No
really
problem.
excited seeing this. It brings it to a whole new level. Like I love the little crystals and rocks and kind of trees, oh, around the edge of the artwork. You've got that when you kind of zoomed out there, I could see like the little fishing dock almost.
Hmm.
This is great. And I like how big the map is. It looks like there's plenty of room to actually move and build. You're not limited. I noticed some kind of old base builder games, especially kind of after
Hmm.
Flash, the map would be so small. And that was actually something that was one of my biggest critiques is you kind of want more room to be more creative. And I feel like
Yeah.
with kind of the
Yeah.
space that you're showing here, this is awesome, man. Thanks for showing us this.
No
Now,
problem.
what can people mint anything? Has there been an NFT pre-sale? Like, where are you guys at as far as Rune Realms and like what me as a user looking in? What can I do to get involved? What can I do to help support this project in your guys' studio right now today?
Yeah, so right now, like we do have like our NFTs, they are still minting. We did like a very soft launch for the NFTs.
Okay.
We basically just like launched the NFTs inside of our internal community, and we launched like with a community that is called Metacade. The way that we want for because of the nature of our NFTs, we wanted to kind of this will sound bad, but we kind of wanted to control the audience that we expose our project to,
Okay.
right? So we didn't want to have just people that like speculative in terms of the project. We didn't want people like just to go to try like to do a quick flip on the NFTs. And
Mhm.
to have like to work with people that they understand our vision in the long term and want basically to work with us in the long term. And not only like in terms of like in terms of buying the NFTs, it's more in terms of like creating a community that can give you like a no BS input in what we are doing. And we
Okay.
can learn from the community, right? So that's the goal. It's like we usually talk about the idea of like we are kind of like a decentralized game studio in a way. So we want to build like a community around the project that allow us to grow in the best of our ability, right? And have like different feedback. In
Hmm.
order for us to do that, we had to basically to go on the route of just like work with communities that have the same vision as we do and same understanding as we do. Um, but if your community wants to mint, we can do that, and I can actually do one thing that is what we did with Medicaid. That is right now, our shrines they cost 100 USDC, and each golem they cost like 20 USDC. When
Okay.
we did it for Medicaid, we changed the golem prices for 15. If that's something that your community is interested in, we can also do that for the community.
Oh wow.
But the most important part is that if they just want to hang out and support the project, and give feedback, that's more than welcome. But if our NFTs, like, again, they are unique because they give you like a revenue share percentage in studio.
Okay.
So if someone is interested in that, they can mint, and then if they want to participate in the ecosystem, they can just like join us and interact with us.
Oh, I really appreciate that. And you guys heard it here first. So we're definitely welcome to get involved in what these guys are doing. And like I said, definitely check out the white paper. I think Carlos, for me, that's kind of what sealed it. When I seen what the effort you guys are putting in and how transparent you were and kind of just the direction of the studio, it was like this is something unique. This isn't just another game studio. And it's interesting to even saying that because Web3 game studios aren't just like any other studio anyways,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
there's so many different, if we're in a new industry here, there's a lot of ways to experiment, there's a lot of unknown,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of things to figure out, and I just feel like the way you guys have mapped everything out is really brilliant. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on here today and kind of introducing everyone to your studio, and also just getting excited about Rune Realms. And that's my kind of game. I've told you about this before. Space
Yeah.
builder games is my absolute favorite genre, so I am definitely excited to get more involved. And maybe we'll have to have you on here again in a couple months for maybe a follow up. Maybe once you reveal some more information about Project Arkham, and we can start talking a little bit about that. That would be really cool to have you on then.
I think we'll be able to do that. And yeah, like I think that like for in terms of the studio, like one thing that a lot of it, like every like we, for example, we partnered with Immutable. Like
Mhm.
when you do like a partnership with Immutable, they do like a background check on who you are and what you're doing and so on. So one thing that people like that usually people have like the exact same thing that you said, like the same compliment is like how transparent we are with the studio and how we're building things. Like
Mhm.
for us, our team, like one, we're all like Web2 founders. Two, we're all public, right? So like everyone can basically check out what we've done in the past and what we do. And and three, we've been like for example, Manny and Ted, they founded CGMA 12 years ago, and I
Wow.
joined the team 7 years ago, 8 years ago that I joined CGMA team, right? So one thing that we have is patience. So we're like we build things like in a way that it makes sense, and just like we in a lot of patience. For example, for CGMA, I know that we're here talking about Meta Studio, but for example, CGMA, our primary channel of client acquisition is word of mouth. That is very hard for you to do in a business that is a course, right?
Mm.
People take the course, and word of mouth is basically what brings people into the academy. It's like the primary method, and the reason for that is simply because like we care. That's just it. That's the formula. That we simply care about what we are doing, and with Meta Studio is not different. We really care about what we are doing, and I think that will show up like even more with time as we grow.
It definitely showed here today, just with all the information you were able to give to the community. And I'm sure a lot of people can tell I feel the same way. That's why I wanted to have you on the channel and really introduce you to a lot of people in the Blue Ocean community who haven't had a chance to kind of learn about you guys. Because what I think you're doing is fantastic. I can tell the passion's there, and you guys, I'm really excited to see what's going to come, in the next couple months into a year with everything that you guys are doing. Where's the best place for people to check you out? Obviously we'll have all your links down below, but is there any
Mhm.
closing thoughts you'd like to leave anybody with before we sign off here?
Yeah, I think like our Discord is the best place. Like I'm
Okay.
always there as well. So if even if someone like wants like just to ping me directly there, like I always respond. Like we have like a very like close community.
Okay.
So if anyone wants to reach out, like I'm on Discord
Awesome.
as
Well,
well.
thanks so much, everybody, for joining us here today. Of course, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do. It definitely helps us out. And like I mentioned, all the links and resources are going to be below for Meta Studio. Thanks so much, Carlos, for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure. And until next time, everyone, cheers.
Thank you.